everybody, I'm Bill Tischer. Welcome to another edition of Exploring Aviation. My co-host Stacy Schultz is on assignment today, but we've got a really special guest, Torben Kiese. Torben, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You've had quite a career in flying, so maybe what we could do is just start at the beginning. How did you get involved with flying?
Well, Bill, my grandfather took me for a ride when I was 5 years old.
Okay.
It was a Piper Warrior, and I still remember it. It was a very exciting flight for me. He let me handle the controls, although I couldn't see over the dashboard.
Sure.
I could see out the side of the airplane and see the horizon.
And that was the spark.
Yep, caught the aviation bug at a young age.
And then did you go to school at a major university to learn to fly, or at a little airport? Or
no, I did go to a major university, the University of Minnesota, but I studied electrical engineering.
Okay.
There.
Okay.
In fact, my grandfather was influential in that from that standpoint too. He encouraged me to go into engineering. But my real love, I guess, is aviation.
Right.
And so while I was going to school, I started taking flight lessons at Flying Cloud Airport in Eden Prairie.
Okay. So you got a private pilot license then? Or?
Initially, I just started taking flight lessons like anyone can do.
Okay.
And go to the airport, hire a flight instructor.
Okay.
And the flight instructor will teach you how to take off and land, and then when he or she determines that you're ready to solo, he'll sign a logbook and you can solo. And I did that in 1987. The only trouble was I didn't have enough money to continue my flying.
Okay.
Private pilot needs 40 hours of flight time before he or she is eligible for a check ride. But I got a job and then restarted my flying again and then did get my private pilot certificate.
Well, very cool. Congratulations on that.
Well, thank you. It's been a little while now.
So now you're flying for a major airline?
Yeah, we're a national airline. I fly for Sun Country Airlines. That's Minnesota's hometown airline.
Okay, and so those are Boeing 737s?
Yes, all Boeing 737s. We have two types of 737s, -800s and -700s. Although both of those are glass cockpit. We have, just like in the modern Cirrus airplanes, we have a PFD and an MFD. And so our flight instruments are not the steam gauges that you see in the older versions of airplanes.
So it's basically all computer display generated?
It looks like a computer CRT screen.
Okay.
Although they're probably about, I'd guess, $100,000 a piece.
Wow.
For these very sophisticated pieces of electronics.
So things have changed over the years for corporate and business and commercial aviation then.
Yeah, definitely. The technology keeps marching forward.
So kind of take us through a typical day. So you get up, you go to work, you do your flight planning, or how does that all work?
Yeah, well, I live in South Minneapolis, so for me to get to the airport, it's roughly 20 minutes.
Okay.
But I need to be at the airport and checked in at least 1 hour prior to a flight.
Okay.
So yesterday, for example, we went to Boston Logan Airport, and our flight was scheduled to depart at 4:05, so I showed up at the airport at about 10 to 3.
Okay. So then you do your flight planning, get the charts out, and...
Yeah, now typically at the airline, the dispatchers do the flight planning, and they'll issue a flight plan, and we're responsible as pilots to do a pre-flight and to actually fly the airplane, but we're not, unlike GA, where we're accustomed to calling flight service and doing our own filing of flight plans.
Right.
At the airlines, they do it for you.
Okay. So you mentioned pre-flight. So a pre-flight is just like in a Cessna or a Cirrus, you just walk around?
Yeah, it's very similar to, it's literally a walk around. So the non-flying pilot gets out and inspects the landing gear, the control surfaces, the hydraulics, and just walks literally around the airplane. Typically at airlines, we alternate flying legs. So the first officer might fly out to Boston Logan, and the captain will fly back, or vice versa. But typically, we alternate. So even though the captain is responsible for the safety of the flight,
right.
He's the final authority, we first officers get to fly too, fortunately.
Okay. So then, now you mentioned the walk around and the hydraulics. So is there a ground school that you took as part of your training to learn about the systems and stuff? There
is a ground school. When I was initially hired at Sun Country in the year 2000, and actually to be a flight engineer on the 727.
Okay.
So that's an older style airplane. that had a required crew of 3, a captain, first officer, and the flight engineer.
Okay.
So, you know, we kind of joke that we're sitting side saddle as a flight engineer, and then the flight engineer handles the fuel control, the electrical system, and kind of almost like a systems manager, but they don't get to fly, so it's not as fun of a job. But now the 727s are very expensive to operate with the 3 engines. They really guzzle the fuel.
Sure.
That's why you don't see so many 727s now.
Okay.
And Sun Country has gone to 737s.
Have you seen that? There's a video on YouTube, and it's basically about the flight engineer. And I think it's a FedEx deal. So you got the first officer, the captain, and the flight engineer in the middle, and they're playing that Steelers Wheels Stuck in the Middle with You song. And it's just really cool. I'll send you the link or something.
Yeah,
on that.
yeah. I haven't seen that particular one, but you know, the flight engineer had some functions to do. So we'd look up, you know, what the climb power might be, and we'd set the climb power. But really, in a 727, the first officer had I guess maybe the least to do. You know, kind of the joke was, first officer would sit in the chair and say, "Pitot heat, what's to eat?" kind of thing. So.
That's funny. So while you're flying, and you mentioned that there's the flying pilot and the non-flying pilot. Mm-hmm. So what's the non-flying pilot doing most of the time while the other pilot's flying?
Well, the non-flying pilot communicates, so works the radios, switches frequencies, and also backs up the flying pilot. Okay. So that you know, it's a form of redundancy. Just like we have redundant engines, if one should fail,
Sure.
the other one can take over. In a sense, that's what's happening at the airlines too, where you have 2 pilots and one can kind of keep an eye on the other.
And then for an emergency situation like the Sully and Jeff Skiles incident, it was good to have 2 pilots on board because
most definitely. And that's the other thing a non-flying pilot will do is read the checklists.
Okay.
So at the airlines, we actually do things from memory. We have what we call flow patterns, but then we always back it up with the checklist to make sure that we don't forget. So we initially do it from memory, and then we back it up with the checklist.
So then after you've landed, do you turn right around and get on another plane to come back, or do you stick around?
We deplane the passengers and clean the airplane. The caterers get, you know, re-cater or resupply the airplane in some cases, although I guess occasionally it could be catered for the whole turn.
Okay.
But Sun Country typically does turns in about 50 minutes.
Okay.
So
basically your day is you get up, you do the pre-flight, you fly to the destination, hang around for an hour or so, and then come back on that same day?
So we'll fly out to Boston Logan, and during that 50 minutes, we're getting fuel, we're preparing the airplane to return, and we do another pre-flight. I mean, we do a walk around before every single leg.
Okay. So what do you like about it? I mean, there's got to be something that's just...
It's exciting to go places, you know. Oftentimes, you know, I'll see airplanes, you know, taking off or climbing out, and I'm a little bit envious, you know, because these people are going somewhere. And, you know, there's still a feeling of excitement, you know, to be able to go somewhere.
Yeah, probably a technical challenge too, being able to fly a big...
Yeah, you know, they're very...
airplane.
I mean, they are complex, so it does take a certain technical proficiency to be able to essentially program the computers to make the airplane do what you'd like it to do. Although, I mean, we can fully manually fly a 737. I mean, we use basically hydraulics to move the flight controls.
Sure.
So just like the Wright brothers who discovered how to control an airplane about the 3 axes.
Yep.
I mean, that's really what the modern airliners do too, is we have ailerons, rudder, and elevator to control a 737 in this case about 3 axes.
Wow. So having the electrical engineering background is probably helped out a lot for troubleshooting?
You know, I think it's probably helped out some. You know, it's but you know,
it's not a requirement.
No, you definitely do not need to be an engineer to be a pilot.
Okay. So, all right, so you finished your private pilot, then obviously you need a few more ratings before you can fly the 737.
Yeah,
so then kind of what did you do then?
So then I practically immediately started working on my instrument rating.
Okay.
And then became a flight instructor, which is sort of a traditional path. Historically, many airline pilots have come from the military, but more and more nowadays, they come from the civilian ranks like I did. So I became a flight instructor, And while teaching other people how to fly, I can accumulate flight experience. And then eventually I got hired by a local freight carrier, Bemidji Aviation.
Okay.
It's what they call a Part 135 operator. That's a subset of the federal aviation regulations that deals with charter. And so I did that for roughly 3 years.
So what kind of planes are those? Are those the big jets or?
Bemidji Aviation is a commuter, kind of a commuter for freight.
Okay.
So they fly Beech 99s, which are kind of like long King Airs.
Okay.
And they fly Beechcraft Queen Airs.
So these are
primarily.
about 10 passenger.
Yeah.
If you were hauling people, it'd be about a 10 passenger
Yeah,
plane.
10 or 12 passengers, and they're flown single pilot with no autopilot in most cases.
Oh wow. And these are 2-engine
Yep.
propeller,
Yep.
right?
2-engine propeller, and Bemidji Aviation, I think, has the largest Beechcraft Queen Air fleet in the world.
Okay.
The Queen Air has the same fuselage as a King Air, it's just that it has reciprocating engines instead of the Pratt & Whitney turbine engines.
So a typical day there is you'd get up at midnight or something?
Well,
or?
that's kind of a tough job. You get up at 5 in the morning,
Okay.
and you're usually launching by about 6. So you fly from Minneapolis to an outstation, maybe International Falls, Bemidji, could be La Crosse, or kind of in the immediate 5-state area. And then, so you fly the freight there, and then you return at night, usually departing the outstation around 7 or 8 at night.
And this is basically in any kind of weather, right? You know.
Yeah, I
it's-
mean, well, Bemidji still flies 6 days a week, so yeah, it's every kind of weather. Now, it doesn't matter if you're a freight pilot or an airline pilot, you still don't fly into tornadoes or thunderstorms or such. But, you know, typically if there were real heavy weather in the area, we could delay our departure or occasionally go to an alternate airport like Sioux Falls.
And then the freight would be moved to Sioux Falls, and
Yep.
then they'd bring it on to wherever you had to go then.
That's right.